Hello, my name's David Banks. I'm a researcher on anything to do with EU defence integration schemes, and I'm particularly interested in making sure that the UK stays out of these schemes at the end of the transition when the UK becomes a fully independent country. It's the 5th of October 2020, and I've been asked to give a bit of an update on this topic and explain where we are in the current phase of the negotiation and if there are any current risks. And in summary, there are risks because there are several unanswered questions about the UK's participation in EU defence, where it features in the exit arrangements. Most people would be surprised to know that defence features in the exit arrangements at all. Most MPs are unaware, but it does feature, and it's found in the political declaration. And I'm going to explain what the political declaration says, what the consequences are, and what ministers need to do in order to just cut completely loose from these EU schemes so that the UK can truly be independent after transition. What the political declaration says is that the UK agrees to consider participation in 3 EU programmes, and they are called the European Defence Agency, European Defence Fund and EU Permanent Structured Cooperation. They're not military cooperation schemes in the sense that the UK and EU are deciding to operate on their own terms, and that's what we would expect from any kind of future partnership. The UK choosing to participate where it wishes to with its allies. It's nothing like that. What the political declaration describes is schemes that are completely fully formed EU structures, legal, political, military structures with their own rule book, where any state that participates in them, including the UK, would have to be a rule taker from the EU. And we don't want that because that doesn't work for the UK as an independent country. But do MPs know this? They certainly don't know how EU defence works, and so this is one of the reasons why there remains a risk that we might get tied up by accident in things that turn nasty or that ministers subsequently realise are unhelpful in the future. Those 3 structures named in the political declaration are described in the context of an option for the UK. So what it says in the precise wording is that the UK will consider joining those 3 structures to the extent possible under EU law. That is a change from the previous version of the political declaration up to whatever it was, October 2019, because under the Theresa May government's version of the political declaration, there was no option, and the UK just would have joined them, and that would have been it for UK defence autonomy. We wouldn't have really been leaving the EU, and we certainly would not have been leaving EU defence policy, which, by the way, is expanding all the time, and it's grown beyond recognition in just the last 4 years. And that growth includes the creation of those 3 structures mentioned in the political declaration. So the current version of the political declaration says that the UK will consider joining. So what does the UK government say about defence in the context of the negotiations, besides what the political declaration says? Will it fulfil that obligation to consider joining? Will it join EU schemes? Well, we don't fully know, but what we do know is that the plan for the negotiations that was announced by the government in February 2020 doesn't include defence. And that might have been seen as somewhat reassuring, but at the same time as that was said, civil servants were saying that defence could be inserted into the negotiations at any point up to the end of the year. So what do the 3 structures do? I'll just explain that very briefly because it's a whole field of its own. It's is governed by more than 17 agreements at the EU, including treaties and EU Council agreements. And the wording of the agreements and the rule books of all of these structures stretch to over 500,000 words. But in brief, those three structures named in the political declaration are the core pillars of the EU defence architecture. And the EU defence architecture is made in order to facilitate the integration of the member states in a military context. To mention the fact that the political declaration mentions three structures is itself ridiculous, because they don't exist as three structures in their entirety. They correspond with the whole array of more than 20 structures of the EU defence architecture. So whoever decided that only three EU defence structures should go into the political declaration was pulling a fast one. It's a con. It could never work that way. What participation in those three actually means is that the UK would be tied into structural, political, legal obligations to the whole of EU common security and defence policy, because that's what the rulebook of the three structures and the wider structure actually says, and what the agreements that underpin them actually say. So at the moment we're unsure as to whether the UK government might inadvertently find itself duped into staying in or committing itself to future participation in those three structures, that it might go beyond just considering and then turn into actually joining them. Why is that a threat? Well, because defence industry has mistakenly been made to think that it would be beneficial for the UK when it wouldn't be, because staying in the EU's defence rulebook actually means that the UK can't allocate contracts straight to UK defence industry except in the most except in specific examples, specific exemptions to do with national security, and those exemptions are shrinking all the time. So in short, being in EU rules is harmful to defence industry because the number of contracts that are lost from the UK increases as every year goes past, since the creation of an EU directive which forces the UK government to accept international competition. The other pressure that is coming to bear on the UK to stay in these structures is to do with Galileo, the EU's space initiative, Galileo and Copernicus, which as part of the expansion of the EU defence architecture were militarised in 2016 and 2017. And so if the UK was to be in any functional part of Galileo, and in the secret part of it, the UK would have to adhere to EU common security and defence policy. That's part of the rules of the EU, and the EU negotiator even published that in his slides, explaining what he wanted from the EU, from the UK, if we were to stay in various structures. So this is where we currently stand. That's the risk. The ministers and MPs, I feel, don't fully understand the functioning of things that are mentioned in the political declaration. And there is a risk that they could be bounced into something. And just as we're hearing that the UK might be giving concessions on fishing, they might well give concessions on things that they believe to be innocuous in the area of defence, but they're definitely not innocuous, and we need to be very careful about what we get tied into.